So I have noticed a lot of differences between artists and the art community from between when I was younger up until now. To give y'all an idea of what I mean, I'm in the 30 plus club, a 90s child, if you will, basically old as shit. So I'm going to be referring to when I was a teenager in the mid 2000s up until now when I'm in my 30s. The first thing I want to touch on is the whole traditional art versus digital art thing. Today there seems to be this big fuss about whether digital or traditional art is better, but see, back in the early 2000s there was no such thing because everyone was a traditional artist. Digital art was nowhere near as accessible as it is now, so everybody drew on paper for the most part. There were no fights about which markers were the best. Why? Because even back then it was still Copic. And it wasn't like most people could afford them anyway, so for the most part we all used colored pencils. I know I didn't have much, but I still made do with what I had and I made great art. Remember stealing paper from the school computer lab because you ran out of paper to do your cool comic idea with? Or printing out your favorite anime pictures to put in your art binder for later? Or staying up way past midnight drawing and watching anime on Adult Swim without a care in the world on a school night? Just you, some music, and your imagination was all you needed to create something great. And honestly, it still is. Speaking of which, nowadays, most people I know, though, are almost exclusively digital artists. Either Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop is their drug of choice, and then whatever their tablet of choice is. But in this day and age, it's so much easier to get started and be great because you have so many choices. So that's a plus. Back then, in terms of traditional media, options were fairly limited. A basic number 2 pencil was more than enough for sketching. If you were fancy enough, you used mechanical pencils. You didn't necessarily need fancy fine liners because your ink pen worked just fine. Crayola seemed to be the color pencil of choice for most artists because rose art was for the birds. If you were rich and or saved enough money for Prismacolor pencils, you were cool. Remember trying those for the first time and being blown away at how the pencils just slid across the paper like butter and that blending? Oh my God. I remember I was so impressed with those that I vowed never to use Crayola again, only to realize I couldn't afford paying $1 per pencil on Prismacolors when I could get a whole 24 pack of Crayolas for a few dollars. I learned pretty quickly that all the good stuff is expensive and creating art ain't cheap. Now, there's so many different and cheaper options for you to get started on your art journey. Are you more into color pencils? Okay, just grab some from Yanyo, Arteza, or Art and Fly. No, I'm not being sponsored by any of these brands. I'm just giving y'all some free game, so get into it. And same thing goes for these alcohol markers. If you can't afford Copics, then these brands sell markers too. So definitely check them out if you haven't already. Now let me see who's really old up in here. Who here remembers doing digital art before Paint Toolside? Anyone? Yeah, I thought so. No, but seriously, back then, being a broke teenager who couldn't afford to buy software meant you either had a pirated copy of Photoshop 7 or GIMP, or you had to deal with Microsoft Paint or Paint.net. All of which were fairly basic and to the point because, well, let's be real, it was free. You get what you pay for. But now it's not even a comparison. You want to draw nice art? You got Medibank Paint, Fire Alpaca, Krita, all of which are packed with everything you need to make the drawing process easier digitally. 2 out of those 3 options let you do animation, and if you want something geared more toward animation, you got OpenToons, Tahoma 2D. You want to do 3D, Blender, SketchUp, and that's just the free stuff. That's not even including the stuff that you would pay for, like Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop. I can't even imagine the things that I would have made had I had that many free tools at my disposal back then. Because let me tell you, drawing in Microsoft Paint and trying to make animations in Windows Movie Maker was a struggle. Like, I'm not knocking you if you do that now. In fact, I salute you because I can't do it. I just can't do it. I don't have the patience. Let me touch on tablets real quick. Now, I'm well aware that graphics tablets have existed and been used long before my generation got a hold of them. But honestly, it seemed like back then, if you were one of the few who managed to get your hands on one, you were cool. Oh, and if you managed to have a Cintiq back then, you were balling, like ballin'. Nowadays, however, it really doesn't matter because screen tablets now are a dime a dozen and a good amount of artists use one. And Wacom doesn't monopolize the market anymore. You got Huion, XP Pen, Uji, Galman. You could even use a Surface Pro or an iPad to do stuff on the go. There's so many options for you to pick and choose what works for you, as opposed to carrying around your laptop and graphics tablet or being stuck at a desk. So I think that's pretty cool. If you wanted your art to be seen in the 2000s, then Deviantart was the place to post your art, period. It was like social media before social media, you know? I remember seeing so much cool art on there and finding so many friends and connecting over our love of the same shows and comics. I remember decorating my profile with my favorite stamps and posting in the forums, arguing about my favorite ships. You know, it just takes you back to a simpler time, you know? Now, there's so many social media platforms for you to promote your art. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, Twitter, you name it. And DeviantArt, well, now it's just a greedy corporate shell of its former self filled to the brim with cringe art. So there's that. As far as tutorials go, unless one of your favorite DeviantArt artists was gracious enough to make a tutorial, you had to hit up the library or the bookstore to look at the few how to draw manga books they had back then. Remember these? I bet you that took you back. And you were instantly popular among your friends if you actually had enough money to buy one of these. Otherwise, you were fighting with all the other weeps to get to the school library first to see if one of those or one of those Christopher Hart how to draw books was back in so you could borrow it because the local library was all out, so there's no point in bothering there. Or you spent countless hours on DeviantArt hoping another artist made a tutorial that you could try to follow but fail miserably. Such were the times, you know? Now, I mean, there's Pinterest, Google, Tumblr. You can look up tutorials here on YouTube. Y'all have everything at your fingertips. Now, because of all the information out here, I see a lot of people my age get discouraged because they feel that these 15, 16, 18-year-old artists are way better than they were at that age and that they improve so much faster. But I try not to think that way. I think of it as more they just got a better head start due to the fact that technology and how we access information has evolved so much from 15, 16 years ago as opposed to now. So sure, they may be a little better, but I try to look at it as a good thing because it shows that so much better quality information is available. And just like it's available to them, it's available to us. And we can use that to hone our craft as well. We can all win out here. There's no need to feel bad about yourself or look down on yourself due to your age. Back when I was growing up, and even up until a few years ago, it was somewhat understood that you had to be at a certain skill level to even think of offering commissions. Otherwise, you just posted your art on your favorite message board and you were lucky if you got asked to do a request thread. Getting request threads back then meant that you were cool. Or at least that's how I felt when I would get them. But only the god tier artists got commissions back then and they charged a truckload of money for them. Also, I know that some of the other really cool artists would go and sell their art at artist alleys at conventions and make money that way too. Now, skill level is irrelevant, and that's good for those who are more on the beginner level and want to offer cheap commissions to get their feet wet in the commission world, as well as those who may have a lower budget and only want a cheap sketch commission. And there's all types of art that fit any taste as well as any budget. In terms of other ways of making money, there's so much you can do. You can open an Etsy shop and make stickers and prints. You can make brushes and sell them on Gumroad. You can stream on Twitch, become an affiliate and make money that way. The possibilities are endless and you don't even have to leave your house. We've seen people on this platform time and time again make a living doing art. So it's definitely possible. And if 16-year-old me knew the possibilities that would become available, she would be excited beyond belief. And that wraps up my little trip down memory lane as an artist. But what about y'all? What do y'all remember about being a younger artist? What do you notice is different about how you make art versus when you were younger? If you relate to any of the things I mentioned, tell me about it in the comments and give me a big old like. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. As always, let me know any more topics you want me to talk about and you might see it in my next video. Till then, thanks for watching and see you soon. Holla.